Hello and welcome back to Peaky Boardgamer. My name is Farkas and today I will teach you how you can play the game Ironwood. Ironwood is an asymmetrical war game for two players in the sense that each faction has their own set of cards and their own special way to win. The game can also be played in a solo mode and takes about an hour to finish. Let's move to the table and see how Ironwood is played. In the game, two factions struggle for control of the land and its natural treasure, the Larimore crystals. The hard-working Ironclad, settlers of the Iron Mountains, and the ferocious Woodwalkers, the deadly shadows of the forests. In this asymmetric battle, each faction uses their own means to achieve victory. The Ironclad is extracting crystals from mountains to use their energy to support their armies and their machines. Their ultimate goal is to build 3 forges in the outer mountains to establish their dominance in Ironwood. Woodwalkers are using the essence of crystals to locate and retrieve 3 totems from inner forests. This will enable them to summon the Guardian, protector of the forests, who will wipe the Ironclad once and for all. Each player uses an exclusive set of special cards. These enable the player to move, initiate battles or defend against their opponent. Using their special powers is essential to achieve their goal before their opponent and win in Ironwood. At first, place the board in the middle of the table. Then create a supply of markers and crystals next to the board. Using any means, determine which player will play which faction and give each player the corresponding tray with components. The board depicts mountains and forest areas between mountains. The Ironclad operates in mountains while Woodwalkers operate in forests. The Ironclad places the drill and 1 fighter in Ferrum, the central forge mountain, and then 2 fighters to each of the 4 inner mountains. You place the personal board using this side facing upwards, the other one is for the solo mode, in front of the Ironclad player and place the forge tokens in this area. You place a marker in the start space of the drill track and keep a personal supply with the remaining fighters and golems right next. Finally, you search for the faction's special cards to find and separate the 3 base cards depicting a star, and then you shuffle the remaining cards and place them in a face-down stack next to the board. Woodwalkers start the game with 2 of their fighters on each of the outer forests. You then place the personal board in front of the player, again on the correct side. Woodwalkers use 2 types of cards, special cards and vision cards. From special cards you also find and separate the 3 starred base cards before you shuffle the remaining deck, creating a face-down stack. From vision cards find the 4 cards that depict a 3 crystal pictogram on the top left, shuffle them and randomly pick 1 and keep it secret. Then shuffle all other cards together and place them on the board face down. Finally, create a personal supply of remaining fighters and totems next to the board. The game is now ready to start. A short interruption here simply to remind you that if you haven't done already, please subscribe to our channel. It will help the channel grow and enable us to bring more videos of your favorite board games. The game is played in rounds indefinitely until one of the players achieves their winning objective. The game will end immediately when the Ironclad builds their 3rd forge or when the Woodwalkers secure their 3rd totem. Every round is split to 3 phases: the preparation phase, the action phase and the round end phase. The preparation phase is split to 3 steps. First, players collect crystals. Woodwalkers gain 1 crystal while the Ironclad gains 2 crystals. In the next step, players draw 2 cards from their special card deck and add them to their hand along with their 3 base cards. Exception: if you are experienced players, then only in the first round draw 4 cards instead of 2 and choose 2 of them to keep. The other 2 are placed back in your deck and the deck is reshuffled. If you are unable to draw the required cards because your deck is empty, then reshuffle all these cards to form a new deck and continue drawing. As for the last step, we will see in the action phase that some cards denoted with this pictogram have ongoing effects and are marked with these markers. In the last step of the phase, you remove one marker from every such ongoing effect card that is in play. Very important! This step is always executed by Woodwalkers first before the Ironclad. Also, if there are any markers on the board indicating effects of the previous round, these are all discarded as well. If there are no such cards or markers on the board at this point, as it happens in the first round, then this step is skipped. For most of these cards, an effect is triggered as soon as you remove a marker off them. For example, this card says that when you remove a marker, move one warband and the drill. Some other cards like this one here trigger an effect when the last marker is removed. Whenever the last marker is removed, the card is also discarded. If you have multiple cards with ongoing effects, you may choose the order they will execute their triggered effects. In the action phase, players alternate turns playing one action card, always starting with Woodwalkers. You place the selected card in the leftmost empty space beneath your board and then execute its text in the bottom. If you don't have any card in your hand or do not wish to play a card on your turn, then instead you draw a card from your deck, place a marker in the leftmost empty card space so you don't lose track, and end your turn. Important! If a card has multiple effects, these must be resolved from top to bottom. For example, with this card, I must first move a warband before I move the drill twice. I will explain movement rules in a bit. Playing a card has no cost, but some effects might have a condition or a cost in order to be triggered, which must be paid in full. You don't have to execute every step or a step in full. For example, I could skip the first part of this card, or if I pay the one crystal, I could skip the recruit part or the movement part of the effect. Important! These two parts of the first effect can be executed in any order. So I could move first and then recruit. Also, if a card allows you to play an additional card like this card here, then you complete executing the first card and then you play another card on top of the first one and execute it as normal. Ongoing effect cards will indicate a number of markers to place on them. For example, this card should be marked with 2 markers after you play it. Cards like this one here allow you to resolve a specific number of effects, so I would have to select up to 2 of the card's 3 effects and execute them again in a top to bottom order. There is a list of keywords you will find on action cards. I cannot explain them all, but you can pause the video now to check them out. The most important gameplay aspects of the game, like movement, attacking and faction-specific mechanics, have to do with the action phase. I will proceed now with explaining the third phase of the round, but then I will come back to explain all these important features in detail. After both players have taken 3 turns, the action phase ends and you move to the end of round phase. As a first step, you recover all base cards you might have used during the previous round. These always come back to your hand. Next, if you have played any ongoing effect cards, these are moved to the area above your board. There is no limit on how many such cards you can have as active. All other used cards are then discarded. If at this point you have more than 8 action cards in your hand, you must discard excess cards, but never base action cards of your faction. In the next step of the phase, if there are totems on the map, then you flip them to the fading side. If there are totems already on their fading side, then these tokens are removed from the board. In the last step of the phase, players can spend crystals to recruit fighters, always starting with Woodwalkers. The cost is 2 crystals per fighter. Woodwalker fighters must be placed on 1 or more outer forests, while Ironclad fighters must be placed on 1 or more mountains that have a forge. Initially, only Firm has a forge, but the Ironclad may construct foundations on outer mountains which can then be upgraded into a forge, so fighters can also be recruited there after this point. After this step, you continue with the next round. Now, let's make a step back and explain movement. Most of action cards enable you to move your units. For the Ironclad, units are fighters, golems and the drill. Woodwalkers only have fighter units. The Ironclad can move only from one mountain to an adjacent mountain by moving across ridges. So from this mountain, I could move to one of these mountains. Woodwalkers can move from one forest to an adjacent forest through paths in the ridges. So from this forest, I could move to one of these forests. Any number of units may exist in one location. Important, every unit can move only once per action. This Woodwalker action card enables me to move up to 4 Woodwalker units. Any units may be selected to move once to an adjacent forest, never the same unit twice. The Ironclad moves in warbands. This card allows you to move 2 warbands from one mountain to an adjacent one. A warband is any number of combat units, fighters or golems that are located in one mountain. For example, from this group here, I can select any number of combat units and move them all together to the same adjacent mountain. Very important, the units that were left behind cannot be moved with my second move of this effect. I need to choose a different mountain with units that have not moved to form a new warband that will move. The drill is not a combat unit and requires specific move actions. This one here specifically allows moving the drill to an adjacent mountain twice. Let's explain the role of the drill now. Every time the drill moves to a mountain that has no forge, you move this marker in the drill track one step to the right and immediately gain the benefits indicated beneath the space. So after I make my first move here, I will move the marker to the next space and gain 2 crystals from the general supply. All crystals collected this way are placed in the drill's cargo area here and are not available to the player. After I make my second move, the marker moves again and I gain another crystal. I secretly look at the top card of the vision card deck and place it back on top. Then I also recruit 1 fighter for free to the mountain the drill moved away from. With the next move, I will gain 1 more crystal and 1 action card from my deck, and this bonus will be repeated every time I move my drill to another mountain with no forge. If the drill ever moves to a mountain with a forge, and remember Ferrum has a forge, the marker must be moved back to the start space and all crystals from its cargo is passed to the player's personal supply. Let's explain now the attack keyword. With this keyword, you normally select one of your warbands to attack an adjacent enemy warband. For example, if I played this card and I attacked, I could select this warband and attack one of these locations that have an enemy warband, or even this location that has the drill in an attempt to destroy it. If Woodwalkers ever attack a location with the drill or Ferrum using this card, and the locations have no Ironclad combat units present, then no battle takes place, the attacker instantly wins the combat. Very important, outer forests can never be involved in combat. Ironclad cannot attack them and Woodwalkers cannot attack from them. Now let's explain combat resolution. After the attacking and defending warband is determined, the attacker first decides whether to wager a card from their hand or not. Doing so, the card will contribute these elements to the combat. The card is played facing downwards and then the defender chooses whether to wager a card or pass. In this example, let's assume that both the attacker and the defender wager a card. Every combat has 3 elements: damage, defense and dominance. First, you calculate damage. Every combat unit contributes 1 damage to the combat. If the Ironclad forces are located on a forge, then the forge contributes 1 point of damage. Then the damage value of your wagered card is added to your total, and then you deduct the defense value of your opponent's wagered card. The final total is the amount of damage you inflict to your opponent's combat units. For each damage, you remove one unit, except on golems, which take 2 damage to be removed, and that's the only difference between golems and normal fighters. Players assign damage simultaneously by the player that inflicts them. After inflicting damage, if a side has destroyed all enemy combat units, then that side automatically wins. If all combat units from both sides are destroyed, then no player wins. If, however, there are still surviving combat units from both sides, the winner is determined through dominance. Every surviving combat unit contributes 1 point of dominance, and if you wager the card, add its dominance value to the total. The player with most dominance is declared the winner. In case of a tie, the attacker wins. Then the battle ends and wagered cards are discarded. The winner of combat may then force enemy surviving combat units to retreat altogether to an adjacent location. The winner chooses that location. In another example, where there is a totem in the forest involved in the combat and the Woodwalkers had to retreat, the totem remains in the forest. The drill is not a combat unit, so you completely ignore its presence during the battle. If, however, the drill is present to the mountain involved in the battle, and the Ironclad were defeated, like in our case, the drill is destroyed after battle. When the drill is destroyed, the drill tracker is reset, Woodwalkers may steal 1 crystal from its cargo if available, and the remaining crystals are returned to the general supply. Finally, the drill is respawned back to Ferrum. The Ironclad commander is trying to build 3 forges. One of the faction's base cards, Expansion, allows the player to place a foundation on an outer mountain they control. You control the location if you have at least 1 combat unit there. So if I play this card, I can place this token on this side here. Foundations have absolutely no other function except to upgrade them into a forge. How? With this other base card, Reinforcement. If you can spend 5 crystals, you flip one of your foundations to the forge side. Do this 3 times and you win. This indication on the forge also reminds you that the forge contributes +1 damage for the Ironclad if it is involved in a battle. The chieftain of the Woodwalkers is trying to secure 3 totems. Woodwalkers use a second deck of vision cards. Each of these cards indicates a mountain where a totem can be found. Player starts the game with 1 vision card, but can take more by using the vision base card, for example. These cards do not count to the hand limit of the player. To secure a totem, you must first discover it. You must have at least 1 walker fighter in an inner forest adjacent to the mountain indicated on the vision card you hold, and this mountain must not be controlled by the Ironclad. Then you can play a card with the Discover keyword to discover the totem. You reveal the vision card and you place a totem in the forest on its full side like I show you. If the totem is discovered in one of the inner mountains, the player also gains 3 crystals as a bonus, which is also indicated on the vision card. Then you discard the vision card. To secure a totem, you must carry it to an outer forest before it fades out. Any fighter that moves away from a forest with a totem can take it with them. In this example, if I had more moves, I could now move that fighter and carry the totem again. If the totem reaches an outer forest, you immediately take it out of the board and place it in one of these 3 slots on your personal board. Do this 3 times and you win. A discovered totem slowly loses its power, so you must secure it before it fades away. As we saw earlier, in the second step of the round end phase, all totems on the board fade out and get flipped to their fading side. Totems that were already flipped are removed and lost. And that's how you can play the game Ironwood. If you like our videos and want to see more, please subscribe to our channel. Until next time, have fun and play more board games.